Hey guys, welcome back to the Matt to Million channel, and in today's video I'm hoping this is going to be the first in a series of videos for a new mini-series in YouTube where I try and take a funding challenge fee and put it into a live account and then try and pay for the challenge based on the profits that I've used in that live account. So ultimately trying to put my money where my mouth is based on the advice I gave in my previous video. In this episode I'm going to be breaking down how I went about this task, how I managed to find a broker that gave me the amount of flexibility I needed to trade on such a small account, and I'll also loop you into how my first week's actually gone. And in future episodes, I hope to update you on the results or lack of results, depending on how it all goes, and also try and combine that with trade breakdowns, maybe picking one from each of the periods that I'm going to be referring to. And for this task, I have actually wired the account up to MyFXbook. Now, I'm not a massive fan of that site. I think it's a bit choppy, but overall I thought it'd be easiest in the way of keeping it consistent to be able to show you how things are progressing each episode that goes by. Now, just before we get cracking, as always guys, if you are enjoying the content on this channel, please hit that likes up button. It makes a huge difference to me as a creator and also for the channel in general. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure that you've got the alerts turned on so you don't miss when I post my next video, and in this example, when I post my next video about this series. Okay, great, so let's get cracking. So why have I set this task for myself, and what are the actual goals here? So for the avid followers amongst you, and for those that watched my last video, and I'll link it up here for those that haven't because I do still stand by the advice, it was surrounding when do you know you are ready to take the Ftmo challenge or any funding challenge for that matter. And it's from this video and upon reflection as to where this idea actually came from. Now, one of the key pieces of advice that I give in this video is instead of just saving your money to take the challenge or just taking loads of challenges and hoping for the best, what you should do to determine if you're ready and to prove to yourself that you can take it is take your challenge fee, put it into a live account, and then trade it and then pay for your challenge fee out of the profits, whether that's in total or whether it's a good portion towards, but this was the advice that I'd given. Two reasons for this, one being that you can actually prove to yourself that you can hit the parameters that you require, and also you can control your emotions in a live market environment. And number two is of course just using the process to be able to make more money, so that actually when you take the challenge you're less out of pocket or not out of pocket at all from your existing principal. Now essentially my point is that if you were too scared to put your challenge fee in a live account and trade it for fear of losing it, then you aren't ready. But this did get me thinking, and it's very, very easy for me to sit here and tell you what to do after having traded for 10 years, have a decent account size, and also sort of been there and done it. In that video, I was kind of saying, you know, it's as simple as that to do, but in reality, I haven't actually traded an account that small in a long, long time. So this is where this whole series idea came from. Of course, with trading small accounts actually comes a lot of difficulties that you may not have with the larger accounts, and this is what I really wanted to hit on the head and put myself in people's shoes who I'm giving the advice to see if I can actually practice what I preach. And also in the video, I was blanket referring to you using your challenge fee, but obviously this is very different depending on the type of challenge that you've got. So I do still stand by that it's a lot more possible when you're using sort of £500 to £1,000, but that obviously is more in the ballpark of people who are afford to be able to take the challenges of 50k, 100k, 200k. But what about people that could only maybe afford to do the 10k challenge? This is of course a lot lower in terms of the capital that you would have, and therefore could be a lot harder just to trade live. So I did some research around all of the prop firms, and I wanted to keep it so I wasn't using too many rogue ones or looking at too many rogue ones, and I tried to find one that had a small challenge size with a small fee that came with it, and then I was going to choose that fee and then try and trade that and try and prove that it can be done on sort of any size of funding challenge. So in short, I'm going to try and take my own advice and prove whether this could be a good philosophy so that you can just trade it in a live account and then pay for the challenge from your profits. Now, for the sake of keeping this series concise, my goal here is going to be to achieve 50% in profits, just so I can keep the series moving, and hopefully if I reach that, I'll then go ahead and just buy a challenge, but at least it will be a 50% contribution towards a challenge fee, which is half the reason that I'm saying to do this in the first place. So what am I starting with, or how much money am I starting with? So for the sake of mainstream and familiarity, I'm going to use Ftmo as the barometer here. So I've looked on there and you can see that they've also got a 10k account challenge that you can use, and this is charged around 155 euros. So in short, I've decided to put my hard-earned cash based on this challenge, and I'm going to be starting with £145 in a brokerage account. Though I would implore you that if you do have the capability to pay for a higher challenge, or even if you're only going to pay for the lower challenge but you do have a bit of extra cash, I would say that the comfortable amount, or I say comfortable but easier amount, would be around the £500 to £1,000 mark to be putting in these things, mainly due to the restrictions that I'm going to be discussing later. So speaking of that, the biggest challenge here that I overlooked was actually finding a broker that offered enough leverage so that you could trade effectively, and especially in the UK, and especially if you're trading indices, which is what I do. Naturally, when you're trading FX, you require far less margin, and therefore the lack of leverage isn't so much of an issue. But for me, trading indices, they are of much higher worth and usually require a lot higher margin requirement. So I had to put myself in the shoes of the person that I was giving the advice to, and then go off and try and find a broker that could actually support this. So I did a hell of a lot of research to look into all the different brokerages that could potentially offer me the high enough leverage, especially based in the UK, so that I could trade my indices and I could trade them effectively. But as I said, most importantly to me, somebody that could offer trading indices and also not at a ridiculously mind-blowing spread where I just get eaten up every time I try and take a position. So after a lot of review hunting and actually reaching out to individuals directly to see how their experience had been, and also after a lot of to and fro with the live web chat people or the customer service online or whatever, I eventually settled on one that I was happy with and that I could actually put the money in and then get going. Now, for sake of ease, I do have a link to the broker below and also the exact account that I chose to open for this particular task. And as you can see from that, I decided to go with Vantage FX. Now, I know that a lot of people have probably seen these guys or heard of them. I mean, I'd sort of heard of them, but to be honest, I've been with the same broker for over 11 years and I've got multiple personal accounts. So of the 3 brokers I use, there wasn't really any need for me to keep looking. So it's not something that I look for on a regular basis in terms of like who's a good broker or who isn't a good broker. Now, whilst I've only really just opened this account with Vantage, what I would say is that the actual process of getting it opened and all of the customer service that I got along the way was actually really, really good. And for those of you that actually have a Mac, but like MT4 or MT5 or whatever, these guys actually have an app for that for the Mac, as well as Windows, of course. So for people that like using it, you do get that as standard and you can download it from your sort of login portal thing. And of course, as I said there, you've got the option between MT4 and MT5. For those that have been following me for a while will know that I don't like the MT4 PC app or whatever. I just don't like the charting. I don't really like how it feels. I think it's all a bit clunky. I did download it and it seems to work, but I don't use it. So I'm not the best person to ask on it. So with the pretty swift and straightforward setup process, I was ready to go within a few hours. And the final thing for me to do to set myself up for this task was to link my MT4 account to MyFXbook. Now I'm going to whip across to MyFXbook to run through the first week's performance in a bit. So you'll see in terms of the performance and whatnot from there. The other thing that I do with MT4, which I know is a bit of a tangent on this, is that I do revise all of the quotes page. So I delete the ones that I don't use and put on the ones that are actually on my watch list. I find that a lot of people still stick with MT4 in terms of all of the pairs that they put on there or whatever. I go in there, get rid of them and just put my normal shortlist, as you can see here. So with all that being said, I'm now ready to go. So the things that I'm looking for here is, yes, to overall earn 50% in profits on this account to prove that it can be done. But initially what I'm looking for is to see that I can make that 10% in a 30-day period so that I would pass the Ftmo challenge. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the first week's results and where I'm at the moment via the MyFXbook. Okay guys, there we go. Just taking a look at the MyFXbook for the first week of my challenge to get the challenge. I'm not going to sort of spend too much time on this. I'm just going to quickly give you sort of a brief overview, you know, in terms of what the broad stats look like. Obviously, with this one, gives you a decent indicator. 8% in the first week. That's £11.61 in profit. You can see that I took a bit of a dip in terms of one of the losses. A couple of days in, which dipped me down to sort of around the 5% profit mark, and then overall now I'm at 8%. So overall pretty chuffed with that. I mean, obviously it's proven if I were to take something like the funding talent challenge, for example, then you know I have the capacity to be able to do that in the time frame required, which is great. And as you can see from the sort of stats below here, you know, we're looking at 4 trades that I've taken overall. Ironically, my win rate on longs is actually lower than shorts, which is usually the other way around, but obviously it's such a small sample size, you know, you can't really you know can't really grumble at that. Overall you can see sort of best trade was £8.14 versus a £2.84 loss. So you know this just sort of gives you an idea in terms of how I'm trading at the moment profitability wise. I've won sort of 75%, so it's, you know, basically 3 out of the 4 trades. And obviously some of these things are useful, you know, like the profit factor, you know, being 5.09. But again, these are the sorts of things that are worth taking into consideration once you've actually, you know, done the you know done it over a period of time, so you can actually take a look. But there you go. That's just a brief look, just so as you've got an understanding of how we are in the first week, and also then the foundation, so that when I bring it back on the second week, we can see what sort of progress has been made. Okay guys, so I think I'm going to leave that one there for today. Obviously it's been a big one. Hopefully it's given you a good introduction in terms of what's happened and how I've set it up and my thinking behind it, and I truly have tried to put myself in the shoes of the people that I'm trying to preach the advice to. In the next episodes, I'm obviously going to be keeping you updated on the good, the bad, the ugly in terms of the progress on this account. I'll also be taking a delve into how I'm dealing with my risk management and whatnot, trying to deal with such a small account, and obviously restrictions around lot sizes. And I'll also probably break down one of the trades within that period so that you can see what sort of trades I'm taking and that they are in accordance with how I would normally trade. trade. If you have enjoyed this one, as always, please just hit that likes up button. It makes a huge difference to the channel. Subscribe if you aren't already, and make sure that you got the alerts turned on so you don't miss when I post the next video in this series. If you're all into daily updates and things like that, then head across to my Instagram at @MattToMillion, where I tend to post daily on my stories with trade updates, inspirational quotes, Q&As, things like this. But head across to there. If I don't speak to you before, have a great week, and I'll catch you on the next video. Take it easy.